Married at First Sight Australia, Episode 29. I'm starting this episode with a conversation that took place between Melissa and Bryce and Kerry and Johnny. Kerry and Johnny visited Melissa and Bryce because they weren't too sure whether they were still in the experiment. So they went knocking on their door, found out these guys are still together because they weren't too sure about that either. So where the conversation went next was Johnny relayed what happened at the dinner party yesterday with the phone call to Sam and Sam's friend being in the background to back her up in all that she was saying. Yeah. It was at that point you could see Melissa's face was like, oh, I didn't know that detail. So Melissa looks at Bryce, expecting Bryce to say something. And of course, he does. He's always got some comeback. He turns around and says his small group of friends knows Sam from back home. She used to own a hairdressing business. And in a polite way, he says they see her as crazy and a compulsive liar. That's what he said. But then Kerry's reaction behind that when she was speaking to the camera was, if you see her as psychotic and crazy, why would you believe any of the information? That to her makes him sound guilty. That's what she said. Then when you saw Kerry question Bryce about the different forms of information from Sam and then also from Beck and also about the gift, this football game or whatever it was, all this seems to line up. So how can it be a lie? Because we're looking from different sources now. We're not just talking about Sam now. You make Sam out to be a liar, as you said. Not everybody could be lying. Bryce's answer to that was, I don't know. He didn't have no comeback for her. Kerry was really grilling him with the minor details, and you could see him getting all flustered. He had no comeback. He is lying through his teeth. He's lying through his teeth. And on top of it, you see Melissa looking at him as in to say, is this true? Is it not? Who do I believe? Bryce needs to say something because this is not convincing me. His behaviour is not convincing me. But it doesn't matter what he does. He could lie through his teeth, you're still going to believe him anyway. And then when Kerry was talking to the camera, she said, he's full of shit. It was at this point we saw Johnny speak and he turned around and said, you need to shut this down. And then Melissa was in agreement and Johnny turned around and said, are you suggesting that he calls her? And she was very much saying, yes, he should. Now everybody's looking at Bryce. Bryce is getting uncomfortable to think, are you serious? You want me to call her? And then he comes out with an excuse, I'm not going to call her on the show. That's what he said. I'm not going to call her on the show. He's going to be caught in a lie if he does. That's what he's worried about. And behind that, when Melissa was talking to the camera, she said that would have been the ideal opportunity for him to put this to bed. Now, again, she's having her doubts. But she's had her doubts all along. It doesn't really matter. Doubts or no doubts, you're going to stay with him anyway. So rather than waste any more time, I'm just going to move on. What we saw next was everybody packing their bags to go back home to their hometown and saying their goodbyes. Yeah. In this episode, we saw Kerry and Johnny saying their goodbyes, Alana and Jason, and also Melissa and Bryce. Yeah. So with Kerry and Johnny, everything was lovey-dovey, amicable. She saw him off downstairs to his taxi, wherever. And I think she had a later flight or something like that, so she went back into the hotel. They departed on a good note. Then we saw Alana and Jason. These two were reminiscing about their time in the apartment. Yeah, the good and the bad. He walked her to the elevator with her luggage, kissed her goodbye. Very romantic, a little emotional, the usual. But they left on a good note. Then we saw Melissa and Bryce. Bryce is still reeling after these allegations, as per usual. Not in a good headspace, not in a good mood. The whole morning was frosty with the departure of Kerry and Johnny. Him and Melissa weren't really talking, packing in silence. Melissa was the first to go. She said her goodbyes to him. And really, it was more about her propping him up. Telling him it's going to be okay. Giving him a hug. Saying, do you miss me? And he's saying, yeah, I miss you. What's that all about? So that whole reception there, the goodbyes, wasn't good. He didn't walk her out either. He virtually waved goodbye. He didn't even wave goodbye. No, he didn't. He just said goodbye. There was no real smooching, none of that. Just a peck and a hug. And that was it. She looked disappointed. Could even the camera woman or the cameraman asked her, is that the ending you expected? And she said no. No, it wasn't. It wasn't good enough. But it doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter what he does. She'll still accept him. So I'm not going to waste any more energy here. So what happened next? We saw everybody depart, go their separate ways, go back to their hometowns, and very much reminiscent about what's just happened in regards to this experiment they've been in, locked away 24/7 with their husbands or wives, and now having to adjust to life as a single person at this time outside of the experiment. That seems to be the same pattern with the three couples here. Having to adjust. Doesn't feel right. Something's missing. Yeah, they've all got the same story. And at the same time, having to ponder over reality versus fantasy and whether they can see themselves working outside of the experiment. Whether it's going to work, the whole 9 yards. So this is decision time. This is definitely decision time. I'm not going to ponder too much here. I'm going to fast forward to the vow renewals themselves. So our first couple to renew their vows were Johnny and Kerry. Johnny looked very smart and handsome. Kerry looked beautiful. Loved the dress. Loved the dress. Yeah, perfect. These two came together. You could see they missed each other. He said she looked beautiful. And he looked handsome. Johnny was the first to recite his vows. Very nice vows. At the end of it, he said he's fallen in love with Kerry. So that was a positive yes from him. Now when it came to Kerry, she recited her vows. But there's one or two lines in the vows that I'd like to recite. She said, Johnny, I see how badly you've been hurt in the past. And I promise I will stand by your side, hold your hand, and give you all the time in the world that you need to heal. Oh, that pulled at my heartstrings. That really did. That got me emotional. I just had to recite it again. You could see Johnny getting emotional at this point. Same with me. Same with me. She continued to say, Johnny, you have my heart, and I'm absolutely falling in love with you. Yes, that's what she said. So as you can see, they both said yes, consummated their vows with a kiss, and walked off into the sunset to live happily ever after. Moving on to our next couple, Melissa and Bryce. I will say that Bryce did look nice in his blue suit. I do love the colour blue on a man. Yeah, he looked handsome. And then we saw Melissa in her silvery goldishy colour dress. I did actually like the dress. Not sure about the shade, but I did like the dress. So these two met in some sort of bar, I believe it was. I did like the actual setup. Yeah, nice ambience. They left on a frosty note, as we all know. But they came together on a good note here. He said she looked beautiful, and she said he looked great. Yeah, he dressed himself, he said. He didn't have her by his side to dress him. Yeah, never mind. Moving on to the vows. His vows were okay. Nothing really sentimental about them. Nothing that got me teary-eyed. Very much straightforward. I've got nothing more to say there. But in conclusion, he said yes. Moving on to Melissa. Now with her vows, I'm actually going to recite 1 or 2 lines because she came here not to play. She wasn't playing today. So she said. But let me start here. She says she has written and rewritten these vows, trying to be sensitive and unoffensive as I've always been. That's what she said. But this is the most important decision of my life and I can't be blasé. So I have to be completely and brutally honest with you. Yep, that's what she said. Completely and brutally honest. I'm confused. I'm confused because when I heard the rest of the vows, I'm thinking, where's the brutal honesty? I was expecting her to tell him to shape up or ship out. Something along those lines. That's what I was expecting. I knew for one she wasn't going to give him his marching orders. No way in hell. This woman is committed to the end. She isn't going anywhere. So I knew that wasn't going to be the case. But all I heard was dribble. The same dribble. About his confrontational behaviour. About the controversies throughout this experiment. Etc, etc, etc. What point were you actually trying to make? What point were you actually making? Because you didn't tell me shit. With all the vows that we see on Marriage at First Sight, there's always the but or the however. Always that nagging doubt. Are they going to say yes or are they going to say no? It's always that but and however. And hers was a but. She said, but despite the rumour, the conflict, and everyone's opinion on our relationship, I know deep down in my heart, I have never felt this way about anyone. I have grown as a person because of you. I cannot imagine my life without you. Oh, why am I wasting my time? Why am I wasting my time? At the beginning, I thought she was going to give him a grilling. That's how it sounded. Give him what for? That's how it sounded. So all that hype for nothing. We all knew she was going to say yes. There was no doubt in my mind. Anyway, they kissed, they hugged, and hopefully they'll live happily ever after. I wish Melissa luck because I believe she's going to need it. Moving on to Alana and Jason. When Alana was talking to the camera, she was getting very tearful. This is when she was getting ready to meet up for the vow renewals. She knows deep down Jason is not ready. She knows that. I know that. I'm sure we all know that. I've been saying this from the beginning. He is not ready. So I'm hoping that she thinks with her head and not with her heart on this one. Because all this breaking up and making up isn't going to work on the outside. It just isn't. They have a lot in common, as she says, but she knows deep down he's not ready. Now, when it came to Jason, again, him getting dressed, ready for the vow renewals, he was talking about how he likes that the matchmakers matched him with Alana. She's the best thing that's happened to him. She understands him. That's what he says. Then he turns around and says, trust and loyalty plays a big part where I'm concerned. I know we've had our disagreements where that's concerned, but I'm sure we can get over it. That's what he said. That's what he said. This guy is living in fantasy land. He's living in make-believe. Then he turns around and says he's been cheated on in all his relationships. When somebody says that, the question that comes in my head, you're the common denominator. For all these women to cheat on you, you're the common denominator. What is it that you're doing wrong? Peter Pan? That's the name I had for him at the beginning. Peter Pan. The boy that never grew up. As far as I'm concerned, he's still a big kid to me. Anyway, fast forward to the vow renewals. So we saw Jason walking onto the beach, looking handsome in his black suit. Then we saw Alana in her white jumpsuit. I actually like that jumpsuit. Might have to have a look at that. Looking very pretty in her white jumpsuit. These two met, said their hellos. You look pretty. He looks handsome. Is that a new suit you're wearing, Jason? Yes, it is, he says. Yes. So, on to the vows themselves. Starting with Jason. Now, his vows, they were emotional. I know he got emotional reading it. I wasn't emotional. He just really dictated what happened throughout the relationship, the good, the bad and the ugly. Yeah, I just didn't get emotional. But he did. And at the end of it, he turned around and said he's falling in love with Alana and he can't wait for them to leave the experiment to go back to sunny Queensland and start their life. Who lives in Queensland? Is it him or her? Is it her having to move? I don't know. It didn't seem to sit right with her because her face said a lot. She wasn't reactive when he was reciting his vows. She wasn't emotional. She seemed to have a lot of thoughts running through her head. She may be second guessing herself. Is he into me? He sees a future with us because he started talking about babies, her being the mother of his child in the vows. So she's thinking, oh, is this how he views us? So he does see a future with me. I think there's a lot of questions running through her head right now. But let's move on to her vows. Now with Alana, it seemed to take her forever to start her vows. Her mind was racing. What do I do now? Do I put a positive spin on this? Or do I go with my initial no? So when it came to her vows, they were very similar to Jason's, to be honest. Dictating what was wrong with the relationship. She was talking about his morals, his double standards, the way he talks to her. Yeah, the whole 9 yards. And it looked like she was going to say no. And we know she was going to say no. Even he knew she was going to say no. And then she started waffling at the end. No longer reading from her cards. She was talking from her heart now. And I knew it was going to be a yes. The minute she started doing that, I knew it was going to be a yes. All she had to do was look into his eyes. That's all she had to do. Forget all that he does wrong. Forget all the bad things. All she has to do was look into his eyes. And she just melted. Now she's saying she's willing to try to make this work, knowing that it's not going to work. He even turned around and said to her, "What made you change your mind?" And she turned around and said, "It was the part where you said you were falling in love with me." Oh dear. All he had to do was whisper sweet nothings. And this is what happens every time. When they fall out, he whispers sweet nothings in her ear, jump into bed, have sex, and we're all good again. That's the relationship they've got. This is going to be a heartbreak. Forget it. It's not going to work. I'm going to keep saying it. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. I don't know how many times I have to say it. 10 dozen times. It's not going to work. Anyway, in conclusion, they both said yes and consummated the relationship with a lovely kiss, a lovely smooch, and hopefully they're looking to live happily ever after. Not. I've got nothing more to say. So this is where I'm going to leave it. If you like what you heard, please like, comment and subscribe. Till next time.